Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Ashenhurst. I have the privilege of being the director of the Ohio Department of Veteran Services, but today it's an honor to be here with you today to remember, to reflect, to commemorate, and not forget. So you know, the era before me, so I'll tell you my husband's era, that defining moment he remembered from his life was the assassination of President Kennedy. It was one of those, he was still in grade school, and he said that was just something you would never forget when they made that call over the loudspeaker at school. Now that was his era, and I'll tell you that's been refined now. I'll tell you my era, the defining moment was 9/11. I remember exactly what I was doing. I remember running to the TV at the office. I remember the second plane hitting. I remember that feeling inside of me when it happened. And when I realized that there are young people alive today who don't have that defining moment in their lives, and they don't have that or understand that feeling inside when that defining moment happens in your life. So it's important that we do things like this today. For those of us that do remember, to make sure that we know that we still share that, and when you still get that weepiness, when you still get that hollowness in your heart, and that little queasiness in your tummy, when you think about 9/11, when you think about the families who are living without their loved ones yet today. Now, I get that a lot because a lot of the military stuff and the service members I lose and all that, but it's a little different feeling. But this 9/11, when war came to our country, war was something that we did overseas. When someone attacked this sacred ground, these United States of America, it was a whole new deal. And something I don't ever want to experience again. But I also want to make sure that we do not ever forget. It's easy to not forget if you lost a loved one. It's easy to not forget if you happen to be in the Pentagon or in the Trade Center or in Pennsylvania at that time because it was personal to you. But there are a lot of people who aren't remembering it, and it isn't prominent in their minds. And maybe when the day hits, they'll go, oh yeah, it's 9/11. But I want it in the hearts of everybody to remember every day the tragic losses of the 2,977 people, but also the tragedy of the attack on our nation, on our soil. So we do things like this today to make sure that we don't forget, and that the young people today who didn't live it get a feel for what it was like and why it's so important that we don't forget. So thanks for joining us here today. Please stand with me as I bring up Senator Craig, the Assistant Minority Whip representing Ohio's 15th District, who also is a proud veteran of the United States Army and who always knows how to touch my heart with a prayer. Senator Craig.
Let us pray. God, you have been thy dwelling place for all generations, from everlasting to everlasting. Thou art God. God, we come before you today on this solemn and even sacred occasion as we join together to pause, to remember and to reflect on the unimaginable, the unprovoked, and the vicious attacks that terrified our nation and took nearly 3,000 lives. God, thank you for the unselfish acts and the courage of families, civil servants, and military personnel, the heroism and bravery of first responders who died paying the full measure of their service to save others. God, today we pray for the fathers, the mothers, the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, the children, and the grandchildren of the fallen. God, comfort them as only you can with your mighty spirit of love in the still moments of their solace, grief, and reflection. God, thank you while the horrendous acts of that day left us shaken. Our faith and hope is not diminished. the resolve and resilience of our nation persist. The challenges and vicissitudes of life have defined our resolve. God, with your divine guidance, our nation is strengthened, strong and secure, as a beacon of hope and light in our world for liberty and justice for all. And God, throughout our nation's history, through it all crisis, through it all opportunity, God, great is your faithfulness. Amen. Now, while we are standing for a moment of silence, at this point in time, I think the taps are.
Please take your seats. Well, Senator Craig, you did it again, made my eyes look a little. And then taps. Gets me about every time. Our next speaker is currently serving her third term in the Ohio House of Representatives. She represents the 86th District, which consists of all of Union County and portions of Marion County. She is a graduate of the Military Academy at West Point and was deployed in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, earned a Bronze Star Medal, and she is currently serving as an Army Reservist. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Representative Tracy Richardson.
Well, thank you, ma'am. My General Ashenhurst, our General Ashenhurst. Isn't she amazing? Let's give a round of applause for her. She's amazing. Before I begin my formal remarks, I want to say a sincere thank you to each of you who have taken the time out of your busy day to be here today. It shows that, like me, you care. And as I look and see some of the young faces, I realize many of you may not at all remember, but we do. And I thank you for being here to carry on this important memory and tradition. I do want to thank the volunteers, all of you are out there who will set up that inspirational and remarkable display today. Each year, it really gives me the goosebumps to see it. So thank you so very much. You know, as I begin my remarks, I just want you to know that on 9/11, I was literally putting my uniform on to go to work that day as a reservist. I saw the images on TV, and it made me stop, stare, and think about what is going to happen to our nation. And so, with that in mind, today we unite in this solemn ceremony to remember those whose lives were lost in one of the largest attacks on American soil in the history of our country, 9/11. In one morning, we lost 2,977 innocent lives and our entire country was changed. The images of the carnage and suffering of innocent men, women, and first responders on that fateful day at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, and with United Airlines Flight 93 are forever etched in our memories. The surprise, the disbelief, and remarkably, the heroism that happened that morning cannot be forgotten. The lives we remember include everyday Americans who had just arrived at work to begin another busy day at the World Trade Center. They did not know that they would not return home from work that day. Those traveling had no indication that their plane would never reach its destination. And first responders found themselves in a battle for lives like never before experienced. How can we not remember them and their sacrifices? Their families, too, have been changed forever. When visiting the Flight 93 National Memorial a few years ago with my family, I listened to the riveting recorded messages of passengers to their loved ones from the plane. It brought me to tears. These helpless yet brave people knew they were hijacked and would likely not be returning home. Their compelling calls were goodbyes, and they became our American heroes. At the World Trade Center in Manhattan, chaos prevailed on 9/11. My parents lived just outside of New York City at the time, and this became so personal to my family because over 100 members of my church died that day. My mother was grief-struck and shocked. We united in prayers as we supported those who lost loved ones and hoped that such a heinous act against humanity would never happen again. You see, I am a member of our armed forces and trained in counterterrorism. I recognized that unprovoked, our fundamentalist enemies weaponize something we use every day in airline travel, planes, to destroy the World Trade Center, which was the very heart of our financial strength in America. They also sought to weaken our military by targeting the Pentagon and to destroy our government with Flight 93. Make no mistake, this was planned and choreographed by those who do not agree with our ideals of freedom. That morning, as I watched the images of not just the first plane, but also the second plane, I knew that our freedom would be forever impacted by the attack and the tragedy. As a result of 9/11, and some of you may not remember this, we now have restricted access in airports and are required to remove our shoes and carry around those little baggies in order to travel on planes. I'm saying you may not remember because it used to be that family members could go right to the gate. We didn't have to go through this kind of security. We could wave at our family members as they boarded planes and our friends, and we could greet them as soon as they got off the planes. This no longer happens, friends. We lost our freedom that day. Some believe this is a small sacrifice to make to secure our safety. While I agree, I want to remind all that our freedom must be preserved and protected. We need to support those who lay down their lives to defend us, protect us, and to serve us. We honor the first responders who died that morning on 9/11 and who continue to keep us safe. Our country may forever be changed due to the attacks on September 11th, 2001. But the United States was not broken or destroyed as the attackers hoped. No, our country rallied and responded to this heinous act with an outpouring of patriotism. We were not broken, but stronger and more united than ever. As I close, I'm hopeful in recalling our state motto, that with God, all things are possible. I lift my voice to heaven, asking God to bless those we honor this evening, their families, and our great country. Please join me in never forgetting their sacrifices. And may God continue to bless our great state and our great nation. Thank you so much.
I don't remember how many years I've had the privilege of emceeing this, but I love sharing this podium with three people, three friends who share the passion I have, and our final speaker will not disappoint either. Our last speaker today is State Fire Marshal Kevin Reardon. Mr. Reardon was appointed Ohio's 39th State Fire Marshal on June 11, 2020. Prior to becoming State Fire Marshal, he spent nearly 6 years as director of the Central Ohio Technical College Institute for Public Safety and Service. And he began his career in the fire service, which seems pretty logical, in 1981 with the Columbus Division of Fire, rising through the ranks from firefighter to battalion chief and on to his retirement in 2013. So Fire Marshal, the podium is yours to wrap this up with the emotion that you always do.
Thank you for that warm welcome, and I just want to thank everybody again for being with us for this occasion. We've all heard the phrase, the farther you get from 9/11, the farther you get, excuse me, from 9/11, and that's true. That's true, and when I have an occasion, an event like this to talk about 9/11, the first things that come to mind are patriotism, the sense of oneness that we all had as a country, as a people, how we came together. And those are great topics. They're wonderful to talk about and share with you, but I'm going to do a twist. I'm going to talk to you about what my day was like on September 11th, 2001. At that time, I was a captain with the Columbus Fire Department. I worked at a fire station in Northeast Columbus. I had a crew that staffed an engine company, a ladder truck, and an EMS vehicle. So I had about 13 people on my crew. As I'm driving to work that day, I was stopped at a traffic light about 2 miles from the station. I had the windows down. It was cool that morning. It's about 6:30 in the morning. And I'm just looking up at the sky. I'm thinking, what a beautiful blue sky this is. It's just beautiful. It's sharp, crisp blue. The temperature was perfect, and I thought, this is going to be a really pretty day in Ohio. Well, it was till about 3 hours later, 2 hours later. So go to the fire station. We have roll call every morning at 8 o'clock, where the ongoing shift stands across from the off-going shift. We exchange information back and forth. 8 o'clock, the shift that was on duty goes home. The new shift, we go out, get our gear on the truck, check our equipment. Standard routine. We do that every day. Every firehouse in the nation does that in some way, shape, or form every day. It takes about a half hour to 40 minutes. Then we always do the same thing again. We come into our kitchen area, we get coffee. I sat down at our kitchen table, which was huge because of how many people we had in the station. I'm doing some paperwork. Somebody turned on the TV. We're drinking coffee, watching the news. And all of a sudden, there's a news flash about the first plane that hit the tower. We stopped. We looked at each other, and we immediately came to the conclusion they're going to be busy in New York City today. Going to be very busy. And we knew instantly a lot of people had died. We get back to our business, getting ready for the rest of the shift. We get back to that, and a few minutes later, over the PA system in the station, I heard, "Captain, we need you in the watch booth." I go to our watch booth, and on the TV, they were replaying the second plane that had crashed into the World Trade Center. At that time, all of us knew that our nation would soon be at war. We knew that that was an attack on this country. And it really changed the lives of all of us that day, as it did many Americans. The rest of the day, the city, by 10:30 that morning, had put in place our emergency contingency plan. So all non-emergency duties were canceled. We didn't do fire inspections. We didn't do school tours. We just responded to emergencies. That was our focus for the day, remaining ready. Because at that time, there was speculation that other large cities, Columbus being one of them, might have an incident. So we were in a response posture. We watched the news all day long. We skipped lunch. Nobody felt like having lunch. We skipped dinner too. Nobody felt like eating at that point. We did the best we could to cope with each other, which is a good thing. We had each other. But as the day went on, the station got quieter and quieter and quieter. And the gravity of the situation was taking shape more. With every news update, it got more serious. The plane crashed into the Pentagon. Again, that reminded us of how severe this attack was on our country. And it was obvious it was not random. It was a very planned, detailed attack, a willful and wanton attack on our nation. At nighttime, we do certain things. We bring the flag down about 8 o'clock at night. That night, we stood out in front of the flag. We left it up. We left it up all night. We stood in front of the flagpole, got around it, and we said a prayer for our country and all of those responders and everyone that we knew had died in those attacks. We also determined that if our fellow firefighters in New York City and Washington, D.C., they weren't going to get any sleep, we weren't either. We stayed up all night. All night. We talked. We were quiet. We reflected. Had a few emergency runs in between. But that was probably the least normal day I had in my entire 33-year career with the Columbus Fire Department. And that changed the world of being a responder forever. Changed it forever. All of a sudden, the fire department, who used to be the good guys, now we're a target. We can help people. That makes us a target. That's a hard concept to grasp, especially when you're always in the mindset of being there to help people. So now we had to insulate and protect ourselves and be aware of keeping bad things from happening to us. Fire stations that we love to have the public come into. At that time, prior to 9/11, the doors were never locked. We wanted the public to come in. If they had a problem, they needed to get in. Not afterwards. Stations went into a lockdown mode citywide, nationwide, because of the threat of something happening. And then a few months later, I found myself in a little place called Anniston, Alabama. Anniston, Alabama, learning about how to respond to sarin gas attacks, nerve gas attacks, other chemical and biological attacks that were part of the threat profile at that time. That continued for the rest of my fire department career. It was something new every year. There was a time when the average firefighter could carry all of their worldly goods, which was your turnout coat, your pants, your boots, and your helmet. Carry all of that under one arm. 9/11 changed that. If you see an average firefighter today with their gear in their personal vehicle, it's in a huge duffel bag on wheels. The whole bag probably weighs in excess of about 100 pounds. Firefighters of today have nerve gas antidote kits that are part of their protective gear. They have different masks for different substances. They have tactics and strategy books that are used and referred to frequently just to remind everyone of what to do. And it not only changed it for the fire service, it changed it for all responders, whether you're in EMS or law enforcement. It changed the way we function, it changed the way we look at people, and it changed the way that we respond. So here we are 21 years later. We're farther away than where we were 21 years ago. I just hope that we never forget what happened that day. It fundamentally changed our life. It fundamentally changed the way this nation acts with other nations. Fundamentally changed it. So we'll never be back to that September 10th, 2001 date. We won't see that. We can get close to it, but there's no going back at this point. We've come forward well. I just hope and pray that we never completely forget. Once again, thank you all very much, and be safe going home.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Fire Marshal. You know, and everybody has their story. We get to share a little bit of ours, but I know that if you were alive over the age of about 6, you have your own personal story about what 9/11 means to you. So go share it. Make sure that those around you don't forget and aren't allowed to forget. And thanks for coming to help us with this today. I hope you know that the plan here now is to put all you to work. We're going to go over and we're going to plant one flag for each loss from 9/11. So almost 3,000 flags will go out on the ground here. And when it's all done, if you can get up above it to see it or watch for the pictures, it'll be that ominous moment where it'll strike you when it's in the shape of the towers with the Pentagon in the middle and the stripe for the landing strip for the plane. It's just incredible. But it couldn't be done without our friends here at C-SCRAP. So first, let me say thank you to my fellow speakers, my friends. It's always great to share the podium with you on this occasion. Thank all you who are here to help us remember and to hopefully help us plant flags. But really a big thanks to the C-SCRAP folks, the Capitol Square Review and Advisory Committee for hosting this and to help lay out how we're going to do these flags. So I'm going to turn this over, I think, to Jeff Bueller. You got the microphone? You got a megaphone, or are you just going to shout really loud? He's going to help put us in place to build this incredible display of flags. And I would just say, as you put a flag in the ground, please don't lose the emotion of that representing a person who gave their life on that day. So thanks again. Let's go plant some flags. Thanks.